Welcome to The Next Big Thing, the 2469 Community Podcast. Joining us today, we have Prakash Senghani, co-founder and CEO of Navatech Group; Ayax Batter, co-founder and CEO of Bellman Media; Jimmy James, founder and CEO of PlantShop.me; and Tariq Ismail, co-founder and COO of Metaventures.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to The Next Big Thing. So we are here to discuss a little bit about the entrepreneurial journey, what led us to make that decision. So welcome, guys. Thank you for joining us here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, yes, I would love to know, why would someone in the right mind say, you know what, I'm not going to work for anyone. I'm not going to go to the safety of a 9-to-5 job with a salary, with paid vacations. I'm going to start my own thing.
So if I go first up, I actually came from a corporate background. So I had a 9-to-5 job. I had a salary, health insurance, all of those things. I guess there's always been an innate want to go and be an entrepreneur. I come from, my ethnic background is Gujarati, a place in India. And in Gujarat, they're known for being businessmen, right? Globally, wherever we emigrate to, wherever they go, anywhere in the world, they're kind of known to be business people. And although my father wasn't one, my uncles are. They're in Africa and they're all businessmen. And I guess I've always had this underlying want, I think, to do something for myself, to be an entrepreneur or run my own business. So I guess for me, there was a calling somewhere deep inside.
Well, yeah, I mean, I can kind of relate to that. For me as well, I come from a business family as well. I'm third generation in my family in business. But I have, actually, quite uniquely, I'm the only one in my family who's done both. I've had a job, multiple jobs over the years, and I've also had multiple opportunities to either be a part of a new startup, new businesses, and to start my own most recently as well. And I think having done both, obviously there is, I got to say, I really do miss having health insurance. It was nice. It was a nice thing to have, and it was nice to, just have that paycheck come in every month and get a decent salary and, have savings.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it was, I found it to be quite limiting. And I guess, I don't know why everyone else gets into business or decides to become an entrepreneur, but for me, it was just, I've always had this kind of thing that I'm a generalist. I'm considered a jack of all trades. I'm really good on technical things. I can write code. I can generally run a digital marketing campaign. I can do a lot of different things at the same time. And I just found that when I was working in one role, doing product or working in tech, it just limited. I felt constricted.
Yeah.
So that kind of drove me that, I want to do more. I want to be more challenged. And while I'm still young, this is the time to take the risks, right? And we know, the data is very clear that, I think 80 or 90% of new businesses fail within the first 5 years. This is the stats. And I think any entrepreneur has to really get their head around this first and foremost and decide. So take the chances when you're young. And that's kind of why I got into it now.
Maybe if I answer that question, I would pick up from where you, I think, in between said, who would in the right mindset would leave their security, a fixed income salary, or maybe like how you were mentioning, good health insurance. Well, from a very young age onwards, I used to have this motivation to be independent, not be tied in behind a desk. So after my high school, my plan and ambition was to go do some engineering or do some science studies back in India. I was born and brought up in UAE, did my schooling here. But the idea that played behind my mind was to become self-dependent. So if I go back to India and come back after 4 years, maybe with a engineering degree, I might start a business, but I'll have to wait for another 4 years or 5 years to rebuild my base and get some money involved. Maybe this was an irrational decision, but I decided to stay back. I found a job in Emirates NBD. I was working there, well paid, 3 years. Parallelly, I did my bachelor's degree. On the day my bachelor's degree was over, not even the results were out, I decided to resign. But all my friends said, this is the most craziest decision that you're going to make in your life. who will pay you? How will you get paid? I said, those days Facebook was up. Mark Zuckerberg was a dropout. Well, I didn't become a dropout, but I always wanted to say I'm a dropout. Didn't happen. So, yeah, that kind of, I didn't think I should think. Just took the decision, leaped in. Talking about, again, health insurance. I used to have group insurance, which is a basic insurance that you get from any health insurance company, which is part of the mandatory MOL rule. Recently, I had to upgrade my insurance, and it was really heavy pay from my own pocket. And there are things that we could afford to do, get, but only if you reach a stage and then afford to do or pay for that.
Well, I will share, like, from my point of view, I don't know if fortunately or unfortunately, I never actually had a job somewhere. Like, originally I started kind of my own thing when I was back in Argentina. I'm from Argentina. I started doing my own thing, and my first actual job for someone was in a startup in Ahoy. Like, you know Jamil. Yeah. And I received a very strange phone call while I was in Argentina, a very shady phone call from the UAE, someone saying like, yeah, I have a company in Dubai. I'm like, okay, this is a scam. I mean, if this is a scam, this is the worst scammer in the world, because I'm in Argentina, I have pesos. Like, you're not going to do anything with this currency.
Yeah.
But it was Jamil that I was doing a lot of content back then. And one of the things that I think kind of resonated with the startup idea is that I was doing a lot of content with very limited resources. And I think that's part of the appeal, for a startup to say, okay, you know what, if we had all the resources in the world, we can do whatever we want. We can do a campaign. We can do like Yas Island and bring Kevin Hart or Jason Momoa and whatever, and do a campaign with that.
Yeah.
But if we are like limited and have to be like very precise in the way we use our resources, maybe someone that is experienced in this can be helpful. Yes.
But you said you were working for a startup, right? Back in
Ahoy.
Argentina.
No, Ahoy. That was the first startup that I worked for.
Oh, I see.
And for me, it was always, I never considered like, okay, I'm building a startup, but it was always like, okay, I'm working on my own. I'm trying to like outsource to some people that I know.
Yeah.
And when I came here, again, I was kind of like not sure about working for someone else, especially after like, 15 or 16 years of working on my own. But I kind of fell in love with this startup concept of, you know what, of course, the craziness of the ideas, and we want to change the world, and we want to like change everything the way it's done. So, that was very, very attractive. And the freedom to do whatever we wanted to do in terms of communication.
Every founder has this, I'm sure during your pitch, you would say, we want to make the world a better place. I don't know, have you seen this series called Silicon Valley?
Yeah,
of course.
Yeah.
That's one of the best series, or maybe thing that you could watch today if you are a first-time founder or you're running your own company.
Yeah.
It's kind of a real-life situation, but they have come up with
satirized it.
Yes.
yeah. So, we all want to make the world a better place. That's why we resigned. But my push was the idea that I had from my own childhood. But for 2 years after resigning from Emirates and BD, I was kind of roaming around the whole country looking for joining a startup.
Okay.
I thought, I'll join with somebody as a co-founder, maybe use my intellectual skills to develop their business and all, but I never had any sales experience. Within 2 years, I understood rather than going and knocking doors and asking for an opportunity, become an opportunity creator. So within these 2 years, I had made a lot of contacts with people who wanted to become founders. So I was pitching the idea to them, can I join your idea? They said they were not so sure about their own ideas. So my co-founders are brilliant people. It's only because of them that the business is still running. If I came with the vision and idea, those guys are the working engine of our business. So I'll just let you guys maybe take the conversation forward from making the world a better place.
Just before we move on to that, I talk to a lot of founders, and I've been talking to them actually for the last couple of weeks. I was in India just now and talking to people about what traits they have, and one thing that's really I found as common amongst founders was that they had some sort of failure in their life, right? Before they became a founder, something happened to them, whether it was during their education or something that they saw or felt or were part of something where it didn't go right. There was something, and that drove them and gave them the passion. So for me, I'll give you my example. So in the UK, in the educational system, you do at around 16 years old, you do these things called GCSEs, and then for 2 years after, you do this thing called A levels, which then gives you the grades to go to university to do your degree. And so I was really, really good at GCSEs. And then so I didn't learn how to study, right? I kind of just walked, like, and I don't mean this to sound arrogant, but like I didn't learn how to revise because I didn't need to, right? Then I went into these things called A levels, and they were a huge step above in terms of difficulty and concepts. I just didn't get it. And so I absolutely failed my A levels, and I was one of these students that you shouldn't have done, right? Like all the teachers said, look, what's gone wrong here? Something seriously went wrong here, and so I didn't get into the degree that I wanted to do. So I had to do an extra year to basically then go and get into the degree, and then from that moment on, I had this kind of drive that I never want to feel like that again, right? I want to make sure that I do whatever I can to make sure I get to the maximum of my abilities, to make sure that I use the maximum of my talents that I've been given. And so that for me was the driver. And to this day, I still use that as the driver to make sure that I'm constantly trying to do the best that I could possibly do. And so I'd love to hear if any of you got similar stories of something failing that drove you.
Well, before I definitely, I think that's actually a really interesting theme, because I think as a founder or as an entrepreneur, you have to become very comfortable with failure and failing often, right? Do you still feel like you fail, or?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the difference now is that I learn from the failures, right? I've gotten over this fear of failing. Now, failure for me is part of the journey. It's like if I'm not failing, that means you're not progressing. I
completely agree with that. I like to call myself an expert in what not to do, right? And I think that a lot of people who typically start either quote unquote business or, try out things, the earlier you try things out and you start buying, selling, trading, building stuff, whatever it is, it's that 10,000 hour rule, right? That you need to build up enough experience, resilience, knowledge, expertise, experience to kind of, you gotta know something to do something, basically, right? Honestly, I think one of the topics for today was to discuss, early challenges and whatnot, and whatnot. To be honest, I feel like I'm still figuring everything out. I still know nothing, right? And every day is like that. So I've had tremendous failures. I had a similar situation in my undergrad. I went from high school where I was very comfortable in what I was studying. My undergrad was my grades were pathetic in my undergrad. There was I remember when I was leaving university, I was coming back to Dubai. I did my undergrad in Canada. I was fortunate. I grew up in Dubai. I went to Canada for my undergrad, and I was moving back to Dubai. And I remember when I was moving back to Dubai, I really felt low. I felt like I really didn't accomplish anything in my undergrad. I wasn't really proud of my accomplishments, but I had this drive that I'm like, no, I'm going to prove myself, and I'm going to come back and find, pave a path. I'm going to do something significant. I'm going to make an impact. And that really drove me, I think, in a lot of positive ways, but in many negative ways as well. I became almost obsessed with my work, and I over-focused. I became a workaholic even for many years, and I was like, no, my work defines me. I'm going to make my work count. And then every professional failure I would have in those early years, I think I took those very personally, and it would really push me down. It took a lot of soul searching, and it took a lot of failures to really realize that there's a lot of things you can't control. I've been through some crazy stuff. I've done a lot of different things in the last 15-ish years of my career. I worked in healthcare. I was involved in setting up some healthcare clinics. I've worked in real estate. I've built some buildings, and most recently, since 2020, I've been working in tech. And all of those failures, early on, those failures really hurt. right?
Yeah.
But as I matured as a person, I started understanding that no, all of these failures, I mean, I grew a lot. I grew a lot from these failures. I've had doctors cheat me and try to force horrible situations to try to get me to sell my business to them. I've had people run away with my money, but I got into real estate because of that. There's a very unique way because I was on site myself trying to finish a project because my contractor ran away with money and ended up in jail. So like you become so good, you build this resilience up, and that's why I always say that you got to start early, right? I always find like the people who are most interesting, like I have a lot of nieces and nephews now. So my brother's son, he's very enterprising. He set up his own Shopify store, last year.
Nice.
It was a pathetic failure.
Yeah.
But I bet he's learned so much from that, and I keep encouraging him, do it again, do it again, because you build tolerance, you build resilience, and you learn to accept your failures. You learn to not let it like affect your ego and your self-worth.
Yep.
And oh man, you grow so much from those failures. So
maybe I'll start from the last point that you said. You had a niece who started his own business on Shopify.
yeah.
So in 2015, when I wanted to do Plant Shop, building an e-commerce engine or an e-commerce website, other than going and relying on WordPress template or Magento, was an expensive affair.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
60,000, 80,000 dirhams were the price back then. But looking today, if I want to start a marketplace, an e-com website, it's easy. Wix, Shopify, even building a template on WordPress is also easy.
Yeah.
But if you ask me, again, somebody who's gonna do his own startup or her startup alone is going to definitely fail every day. If you don't have a co-founder with you to argue with and understand, challenge your ideas, you're failing every day. You don't know how long would that curve be, but the faster you fail, the faster you learn. I did my fundraising from 500 startups in 2018 from multiple rejections. So I thought to myself that every rejection is my own failure. Maybe I'm not good enough to do fundraising. I'm not good enough to become a founder. Why are they rejecting me? One thing that I learned from all the fundraising rejections, and the reason for me considering those as a failure, was because I didn't ask for a feedback. Why did you reject me? What was the reason for rejection? What can I do better with the next one?
Yeah.
What I did is I ran from one VC to another VC, knocking doors, sending pitch decks, and doing a follow-up. They'll say no. So my idea of taking a no was, again, going back to them after 3 months and asking, hey, are you willing to invest again? I would send them maybe weekly updates, monthly updates over email, and then ask again, are you going to invest? But the best part was the learning curve that I understood is ask for feedback.
Yeah.
Another thing, what I learned from 500 startups was they teach you during their accelerator program on how to achieve growth or hyper growth fast. So they have a loop in which you experiment an idea, and they say fail fast. Best is if you have a long-term plan, keep that aside and take the easiest accomplishable plan and try and either find out if it's going to work or else fail in 2 weeks. Their theory is if this particular idea or experiment is not going to give you growth in 2 weeks, that means it's a failure. Move on to the next one. Don't see if it's going to give you a result in next week or the next, again, the 4th week and so on.
Actually, I learned this since I joined Ahoy, because it was kind of different the way they wanted to approach things. It was one of the first conversations we had. I came like with a very perfectionist mindset, like, okay, we need to do this and it has to be a success like immediately. And I remember Jamil recommended a book called 0 to 1. I think it's called From 0 to 1 by Peter Thiel. And I remember talking about this and talking about the idea of trying to do something new meant that we need to try
Lots of things.
a million times till get the right way. But it was part of the goal. I think this is very relatable to what founders usually go through. That it's not, of course, there are best practices, but following best practices would lead to the same results that already exist. If I want to do something different, the the approach is yet to be yet to be tried.
Yeah.
And of course, that leads to a million failed attempts, which, of course, if you sit just to feel bad about yourself for the failure that you had, you cannot grow from this. If you take feedback from it, you understand, okay, how can we do it better the next time, and grow from this and change from this and fail fast and pivot in the direction to success.
Yeah.
So the thing is, I've had, before we got into this like latest startup that we're working on, my business partner and I had this software house, right? So this is how we were working with a lot of startups. We worked with a lot of enterprise customers and stuff, helping them with tech. This was a phase where I actually got a chance to work with a lot of funded startups as well here in the UAE, as well as aspiring founders and startups. I was teaching code around 2021, 2022, last couple years after COVID, after the lockdown and things. And one thing became really apparent, especially in this region. There's so many people with ideas. And everyone wants to, it's the cool thing to do now, right?
Yeah.
I mean, is to be a tech entrepreneur, be a part of a startup or create a startup, change the world, make an impact. And I think a lot of people go into it with the glamour in mind, and not realizing that there's a lot more that has to be done, right? And unfortunately, like I've spoken to so many aspiring founders, different kinds of people, right? People who have either they have the market experience, industry experience, and they have this idea that they have a problem that they want to solve. You've got people who they see the success of another startup, like, oh, I want to replicate. I want to copy them. All the Uber copycats, right? That have come and gone, right? And you have people. Some of the most interesting people I found were people typically in small SMEs, second generation family businesses. For example, the younger sons or kids have come back from college, they've joined the family business. Now they want to kind of branch off and kind of help their family businesses kind of evolve in, the new era and things like this. I found that the biggest challenge was, there's a lot of knowledge, right? People have a lot of experiences. People have, there's a lot of money in the market. There's a lot of ideas in the market. But where people really failed was kind of bringing it all together. And to your point, Jimmy, about partnerships, right? I mean, this is, I think, something that really becomes important because you as an individual, you want to be a founder or a co-founder, but you really have to know what you're good at and what you're not good at, right? And you have to really be honest with yourself and know what you're bad at. Because if you don't figure that out first, then you don't know what kind of partner you need, what kind of co-founder you need to fill those gaps, because you definitely have gaps. And if you don't recognize that you have gaps, go figure out those first.
So your co-founder that you're looking for has to be disagreeing with you. If you find somebody to agree with you, that means it's not going to definitely work. You're destined to reach a failure.
Or you find one that agrees with you and one that disagrees with you. Why not?
Maybe to balance it out, right?
But I think it's important. A couple of points. Where what you're talking about here is diversity, right? It was bringing diversity into your team. It's pointless that if you, with this self-realization, you realize I'm really good at marketing, then you find another co-founder who's really good at marketing, who's going to do the finance, right? Like who's going to build the product. And so I think, to your point, it's important. They don't necessarily have to be co-founders, but the early team, right, has to fill the gaps in around you. And this self-awareness is super, super important, right? We talked a little bit about self-awareness in understanding the failure doesn't define you. I think that also comes from self-awareness, but also being self-aware. They're saying, look, I'm really rubbish at numbers, or I'm really rubbish at coding, or like saying, but I'm really good at these things, so I'll come and fill in the gaps with these. It's super important for you at the very beginning to get started, right? Because it's super important then to start building some of these relationships and this understanding. And I don't necessarily agree that you have to have a disagreement with your co-founders all of the time. I think it's healthy to have those things, but I don't think that should be your starting point, that you have to be always arguing for it to work.
It's not the emotional disagreement; it's the intellectual disagreement.
No, absolutely,
absolutely. Like a challenge. So it's if we see eye to eye on everything,
then you're not doing something right.
Something is wrong.
Yeah, if you're not, that means you're not pushing the boundaries, right? If everything's always right and everything's going in the right direction, that means you're probably not pushing hard enough.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, for me, I have an amazing business partner. I'm sure everyone thinks that their business partner is the best, but I promise mine is the best. we are very, very similar in so many ways. We're both complete geeks. And I like to say that I was a geek before it was cool to be a geek.
Yeah.
We met at a software coding boot camp. I was upskilling. He was my teacher. He's from Brazil, so from your neighborhood. He's very technically sound, right? He's a very brilliant software engineer, CTO level, younger than me. I look up to him in so many ways. He's a friend. He's a mentor. He does my code reviews when I'm coding. He does, he's someone that I really rely on. But in so many ways, we're complete opposites, right? Where he's very technically minded, very kind of logical, very, he's very based on, he looks at facts very strongly. I'm far more intuition based. I'm the product guy. So I'm product vision. I'm trying to empathize with our users and all of that. And we have arguments all the time. We disagree on strategy. Sometimes I want to be the perfectionist. I'm like, no, this isn't good enough for the user. And sometimes he's like, no. He's like, are you sure? He's like, no. He's like, the UX doesn't have to be as pretty, and that fine balance. I think that's really, really complicated, right, to get sometimes, especially when you're new to entrepreneurship and to tech. Is that how much is too much, how much is not enough, and I think that's where having more opinions really comes in handy. Is that it keeps you in check, right? So he'll make sure that I don't take the vision too far, and I keep in check that no, everything doesn't have to be a custom component. We can use third-party libraries. We can take shortcuts. Exactly. And we can throw away code sometimes. It's okay. We just need to get to market faster.
Yeah. And to go back to your earlier point, so we digress a little bit about changing the world, right? And I don't know if every startup starts off wanting to change the world, or the world as in, if we talk about it as the whole world, but probably changing your part of the world, right? The bit that you have experience over or influence over. And certainly with my startup, we do want to try and change the world in so much as we want people to go home safely to their families in the same way that they come to the construction industry. The industry itself is really, really bad in terms of its safety performance, and we've seen it, right? Especially in this region, these people come from the Asian subcontinent and that want to improve their lives, want to send money back home to their families, and end up injuring or killing themselves. So genuinely, our kind of passion and mission and vision is to make sure that the tech that we provide, we give access to these types of people to the technology, because sometimes they don't get it. The other thing is that we use the tech to help them keep themselves safe, and in that small way, changing the world, right? So I think that's
maybe
important.
I might agree to disagree with you, or the other way around. Definitely everybody has to think regional, only then can you go global. But the idea that world changing ideas can only come out of Silicon Valley has been so imprinted in all around the world, that if a enterprising entrepreneur comes up with idea, maybe to challenge the biggest rocket company or the biggest tech company, they'll get scared. The fear, maybe even if he or she finds a co-founder who believes in the idea and pitches that, okay, let's build this product to challenge Google, Amazon, they might say, hey, we might not even reach there, because we are not supposed to change the world, but only change the region. I totally agree with you. Without going regional, you'll never go global.
I think you misunderstood my point. It's not about whether it's regional or global. What I'm saying, even the idea I'm talking about is a global problem. But what I'm saying is that sometimes it doesn't have to be that you change the entire world, but it's your personal world, right? The personal world that you can understand, that you've experienced, right? And to change that is also affecting change, right? I think that's an honorable thing to do. Your other point about Silicon Valley not being the center of the tech universe, right? I completely agree with that, and that's another thing we're determined to do, is to take technology that's been built in the UAE. So we're using the Falcon model, for example, which is built here in the UAE, and we want to show the entire world what you can do with this technology that's been built outside of the Silicon Valley. So 100% agree. We need to get over this.
Actually, this is one of the main reasons why the 2469 community started from the beginning. I could relate to this, but from a different part of the world, that we still have the same prejudiced, I would say, that, okay, we are a market, like in Argentina, for example, we're a market that's more used to consuming things or to adapting things, doing incremental enhancements on things that were built in the US, and we apply them to our market. And here, like, from being here, I can tell you, there's nothing missing in this ecosystem to build unicorns or amazing products.
Yep.
I mean, there's nothing missing from what Silicon Valley has. Actually, like, a lot of the tech talent in Silicon Valley comes from this region. It has migrated there. So it's also, I mean, it's not only a change in the mindset of the people, it's also a change in the mindset on the ecosystem that supports this.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to talk bad about anyone, but if as an investor, you are not willing to take a chance with a company here and you're more willing to, okay, let's see if we can bring a 5-minute faster Uber to Dubai instead of saying, okay, what can we build from here?
I think the challenge. I've been here for a long time. I was born and raised in this country, so this is home for me. I've seen this country change a lot over the years, and when I came back from university, I'm going to give away my age a little bit here, but basically I came back from my undergrad, moved back to Dubai around 2010. And I joined a digital marketing agency. At that time, the agency I was working for was the largest digital marketing agency in the region. Now world has changed a lot since then. When you saw the startups there, right? Like who was there? One of the early startups at that time was Souk. For example, Souk was in the late 2000s, I believe they started, right? It took them, nearly a decade and a half before they got acquired by Amazon. The ecosystem at that time was very much driven by looking at the West, typically the US, North America, but typically the US, and looking at Dubai was always considered to be like 5, 8, 10 years behind the trend in the US, right? So when I was in university, I was ordering online for food delivery, and when I came back to Dubai, I was back to the phone, right, calling people. And now obviously that's changed completely. But it was about that 5 to 8 years after kind of the trend in North America that those trends tended to trickle down here. So a lot of the people who came back, people I even went to school with, they came back from university. A lot of them have been involved with some prominent startups and things since they've come back. But that was typically the trend. You would take a concept that you saw in the West, like, let me become the concept for this region. And what was the strategy? It was very simple. Try to be the biggest, baddest, the first entrant in the market, and hope that when these guys come to the region, that they will acquire you.
See, like how you mentioned, without taking names or trying to break the names, I think VCs are more inclined to invest in companies or ideas that are already proven in the Western hemisphere of the world. But I'm sure there are a lot of founders who are pitching ideas, new ideas, which maybe regional VCs think might not work out. But I think VCs in Silicon Valley might take a shot at the idea. And it's not the lack of aspiration that founders not coming with world-changing or different and unique ideas. It's the lack of inspiration. Maybe us as founders or successful startup founders who's already started a company, starting itself is a success. Yeah. How does the idea go forward is all about the adoption that the market does. I personally have taken up idea of pro bono mentoring. So even if I have a very important task at my business that needs to be done, but I get a call from a founder who needs a solution, I'd pick up the call and give them a one-word solution, not a sentence or a thing. Like, let's say, back in 2018, we had a huge database of customers with whom we were not communicating regularly. We were sitting on top of this customer contacts, not knowing what to do. We came up with an idea, okay, let's do some retention marketing, let's do performance marketing, let's do email marketing. And I went around asking a lot of people, what is the best solution? Let's say, I'm just putting an example, to do email marketing. Until I reached a founder, I went around asking my mentors, consultants, people who are working in big companies with this CMO roles and all. Until I reached a founder, I didn't get an answer. Say, hey, use this X software and find somebody who can do the setup for you, build a strategy for you, automate, and let the system run. Yeah. But others would give me a solution saying, hey, you need to do a strategy. This is the strategy. But what tool do I use? No answer. Okay, you've given me a strategy. Now let's say I found email marketing software. I don't know how to set it up. Can you help me set it up? No. As founders, we need hands-on help sometimes.
Yeah.
Now, you guys must be good at what you do. You might have co-founders to balance out the equation. But what if you find a tool, let's say, again, accounting and bookkeeping? This is one big failure that all founders fail to look at. From day one, if you don't count your expenses and only count your income, at one point of time, you're going to get stuck. Could be in a fundraising round, could be in a later stage where you need to exit. Maybe VCs would forgive you for not keeping books, and they will only look at your income. But let's say you start a startup to ultimately exit, right? Without proper books, without a proper due diligence into your books and finances and audited things, you can never exit. So I have broken up with a lot of mentees of mine for the fact that they do not understand the importance of bookkeeping.
Absolutely, I agree. There's of course fundamentals like that. The thing is, though, what my point was that now the ecosystem seems to be changing, right?
Yeah.
What you see now, I don't know, particularly post 2020. Post-COVID, Dubai has done an incredible job at reinventing its image and inviting and making Dubai and the UAE, open for the world to do business in. Now you're seeing those innovations. Now you see that where we used to follow, we're now becoming leaders in so many ways. And I think the difference has become now the government initiatives, the strategy from the top, right? Where they have prioritized, certain industries, they have certain strategies, and they've disseminated the information about what is a priority for them: agriculture, aerospace, aviation, logistics. They've medical biosciences, right? Yeah. So now you have an ecosystem that is starting to evolve, and now you're seeing actually that traditionally US-based VCs were not interested in this region whatsoever, right? They wouldn't even come to this part of the world. Now with Leap conference happening in Riyadh every year, with GITEX becoming such a huge thing, Web Summit Qatar. Now you're seeing all these US VCs who typically never come to this region. At least they're coming to explore. They're talking. They're looking at the startups. They're looking at the ecosystem here. They're coming also for the investors because they need money, for their funds. So I think now is like the real time where we're going to start seeing how this region is going to kind of come on its own, and we're going to start seeing really creative, innovative solutions that are maybe even region specific or climate specific in this region. But I think now, there's going to be a real differentiation between what you see in North America and what you see in this region.
I think it's already happening. I don't think we're waiting to see some of this, right? I think it's happening already. And if you imagine UAE as a country itself is a startup, right? And you'd hear people talking about this, right? It's a fairly young country, and it's growing really fast. And so they're going to make mistakes, right? And they're going to learn from them, and they are learning from them. And I think Dubai in particular is doing a great job at doing this, right? At promoting businesses. And there's a real understanding that startups and small and medium-sized enterprises are going to be this driver for change and diversification away from petrochems and real growth in the economy, right? They're going to be real economic drivers. And so we're going to see more and more of that. On the investment and the VC, I think maybe about 4 or 5 months ago, I heard on Dubai Eye, there was a venture capitalist from Silicon Valley. He said on the radio that he meets more VCs from Silicon Valley in Dubai than he meets in Silicon Valley itself, right? And that was astounding, right? To hear that. And that's telling you like that we're attracting people here now, aren't we? That we're attracting the money here. And I think the other thing, talking to a few other VCs, was that instead of them coming here to basically with their begging bowls to fill up their funds and then take the money and then go and deploy it, they're getting asked to deploy portions of it in the region. And that's a really, really important thing, I think. And we're seeing that, we're feeling that as well. So we're going through a fundraise at the moment, and some of the VCs that we're talking to have basically got mandates that, or they might not be hard mandates, but certainly soft mandates that a portion of the funds that they've raised from here should be coming back and flowing back in here. And particularly in Riyadh and in Saudi Arabia, the money that's been being put into VC funds there is being asked to be put back there. And I think that's great for the ecosystem, right? Fantastic for the ecosystem.
Absolutely.
And also the way that the ecosystem is, let's say, maturing in that way allows also for entrepreneurs to exit their companies and reinvest in tech.
Yeah.
Which is kind of like the best investor you can have because he knows.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's the thing that's been lacking though, right? Is that we haven't got that maturity where we've had exits and then that exit money then trickles back down and creates this virtuous cycle. So we're on that curve, right? It's happening. It's going to happen.
Yes.
I know it's frustrating for some of us who are in the ecosystem and entrepreneurs by nature are sometimes impatient, right?
Yeah.
But I personally am feeling this change, right? I'm seeing and feeling this change that's coming. And look, like the 2469 community and that you talked about going to find problems when you only found it in a founder. That's exactly what this forum has been set up to do. And I was talking to you earlier about this, right? Is that there's very rarely someone posts a question in this WhatsApp group that goes unanswered.
Yeah.
Right. That's an amazing thing to happen. I'm in multiple different communities like this, and this one is by far the most active, by far the most useful, and by far the most collegiate. Right. It genuinely feels like a community should. Everybody's got each other's back. Everybody wants everybody else to succeed. Everybody applauds everyone else's successes. It's amazing. Like, and that's a sign of a maturity of the ecosystem as well, I think.
Yeah.
I think that's really cool. And I'm relatively new to this community. I've been following this community for a while, but scheduling and things haven't really worked out that I've been able to participate too much. But I think we've all, if you're an entrepreneur, one of the fundamentals is that you're going around talking to people, you're meeting people as much as you can. Yeah. I think it's really hard in Dubai to find like-minded people, to kind of people that you want to hang out with and go and talk to. How many meetups I've gone to probably, I don't know, a couple hundred meetups over the last couple of years, right?
Yeah.
Because you're constantly looking, right? You're looking for
course.
opportunities, you're looking for interesting people to meet, you're looking to connect with interesting people, find new ideas, inspirations. I think 90% of those meetups you go to, you'd never go back to. You don't find the diversity, the life that you're looking for in those communities. So I'm very interested in what 2469 is doing, and how it's so important. It's so important. There's so much misconceptions about how to get started. Dubai is expensive. One of the big challenges here is it's costly to set up a business. It's costly to recruit people. It's costly to pay their salaries here. And there's a lot of challenges in this ecosystem, region specific, right? From lack of affordable talent to cost of living to
Opening bank accounts.
Opening bank accounts is interesting, right?
Biggest challenge for a founder. Yeah.
It's a huge challenge. It took me 3 months to open a bank account, and I have a lot of relationship managers on speed dial. So it's ridiculous.
It's the compliance guys that do not understand what are you trying to accomplish or what's your background. They do a lot of background check and reject you upfront, saying you're not an investor. See, I know banks have their own framework and guidelines to work with, but maybe so. I guess it has to come from the top. Dubai Future Foundation is actually playing a big role in reworking the frameworks. In even Shera in Sharjah is also doing a great job in working with banks.
Like in Abu Dhabi as well.
VO is actually a good solution for entrepreneurs, but not all companies. We have faced a big challenge. So when we raised our funding from 500 startups in 2018, we were supposed to open a SPV license in ADGM. And getting a bank account opened for SPV is near to impossible. I have no idea how the other guys with an SPV have opened a bank account. So the main reason why we got rejected is we are first-time founders. All my founders were either working or comes from a second-generation business family. The reason why we got rejected is because we are not eligible to be investors or owners of a SPV. Mm-hmm. So I don't know how do we prove, there's no access directly into the compliance department. So it's I guess Shera and Dubai Future Foundation and In5, Thai Dubai, and all are people with access into top level, director level access to banks and it has to be brought down into a compliance regulatory framework where there should be a method to prove that we are a tech company or a founder who's bringing in money from a VC, and shouldn't be a hurdle for us to move forward.
And that's why I find that these kind of communities like 2469 are so important, right? Because, you know, in Dubai is an amazing place. UAE has grown tremendously. I mean, I love this place. We all do, right? That's why we're here, right? We see opportunities here, and we love living here. But in so many ways, we're still, you know, we still have that. We still have a lot of traits of the Wild West, right? There's a lot of, like you were saying, it's a very young country. That has accelerated its growth and its development tremendously, but obviously it's not going to be perfect. And you know, still relationships matter here. Who you know still does matter here. You know, I was at Web Summit a couple of years ago, and I had this experience. For example, I was talking to all these startups, you know, at Web Summit who were exhibiting, and you know, Dubai's been super popular the last few years, right? Everyone wants to come to Dubai. So I was talking to people, and they'd keep asking, "Oh, I want to come to Dubai. I want to set up in Dubai. How do I do that?" And then I went and ran into the Dubai economy booth, and I was talking to them. I'm like, "Hey guys, you realize that there's so many people here who want to come to Dubai. Are you going and speaking to them?" Yeah. They're like, "What? Where are they? Tell them to come to our booth." All right. And I'm like, "No, guys, you need to go out and talk to these people." And the amazing thing is these guys are so responsive. The Dubai economy people that I met, the guys from Astro Labs were there. There was representatives from Emirates Group. Like there's a really good delegation that came with them. Dr. Marwan, who's in charge of Dubai Blockchain Center, who's with Smart Dubai. Like they're really active, right? Yeah. And they really care, because as soon as like I was talking to this lady, and she's like, "Look, here's my WhatsApp number. If you find anyone who wants to come to Dubai, put them in touch with me directly." You know, and you know, if they need an appointment, if they need to talk to somebody at Dubai Health Authority, they need to talk to somebody at RTA or what it's my job to make sure that they are able to get those appointments. So the really cool thing about here is that yes, okay, there's a lack of formality, and people get really confused, especially when you come to Dubai, because you're trying to figure out how it works. But this is why 2469 and communities like this are so important, because you get to find people who have gone through this and can guide you and help you out. And
so before startup communities came in, a founder would be going around and checking or asking, approaching company setup companies. So they would try to push you to the highest, where they get paid from
the commissions.
Exactly. So the easiest, the most cheapest license could be ADGM $700, or maybe Sharjah Shara 5,500 dirhams. But they wouldn't push for that. They might be pushing for an LLC license, where at the same time the founder might not be needing an LLC license or a mainland license. But depending on the activity, it's not the company setup consultant who knows the best for a founder. Maybe a founder is the best person to advise another founder, what kind of company should you be setting up today? And again, looking at the scalability, where are you planning to reach? How many are you trying to employ? Now, as a founder, I might be too optimistic about I'll raise $1 million in 6 months. But as a founder who's already failed multiple times in fundraising, or maybe raised funding in 6 years, or run a company for 6 years, might be able to slow down the founder and say, hey, this is the reality that you're going to face. Could be a hard pill to swallow, but you have to take it.
Yeah, but I think the other thing about about this community is becomes an advocate voice, right? To this, like you canvas these opinions and these struggles and some of the things, and then you can go as a united voice to the banks or to government entities, and I think that's another important part of these communities, right? One, internally, so we've got this internal facing help that we can get, and advice and how best practices and things like that. But there's an external facing component to it, which we're starting to see now as well, right? Of course.
Yeah, you can tell that, okay, there's an opinion being formulated that is agreed by all these people. Apparently,
or there's a struggle or a pain point, right?
You get a little bit more leverage.
Exactly, right? Well, not just leverage, but also, I think, raise awareness of it, right? Forget about anything else, but through to people like Dubai Commerce or any of these guys is that you can start using the power of this community to start raising awareness of some of the genuine issues, right? That SMEs, if they're serious and I think they are, right? They definitely are. We're feeling that serious about these being economic drivers, and knowing Dubai and having been here for the last 11 years, they'll do something about it as well.
No,
and some of it is just that they don't know, right?
Yeah.
Something that I wanted to share. I'm sorry to interrupt.
it's okay.
I'll make it short. Actually, Dubai Chamber of Commerce has a business council for all industries. They recently started a business council for the e-commerce industry.
Yeah.
And they have been trying to set this up, if I'm correct, from the last 2 years or something. And on the RSVP list, I see top level leadership level people who signed up to come or RSVP'd from Noon, Amazon, and all these big companies. But eventually, when we reach the boardroom to discuss, we don't see Noon, Amazon, and the big giants. And without them, how do we? How does? I'm not talking about from my personal point of view, but Dubai Chamber has set up a council to know the challenges from the giants and also from a early stage startup. Since we're talking about e-commerce, my problem might be I have an SPV, I don't have a bank account, I'm not able to get access to funding, or maybe I'm not able to deliver my products to a different city because of a particular challenge that I have. I have one particular challenge that I heard during the last board meeting was there's a company that brings a Korean skincare product into Dubai and it doesn't have an HS code. So the company is legal, they are selling a legal product, no HS code. Where do they go? This is the best counsel that you have to go to. So I'll let you continue from there.
Yeah, and that's a really good point. And I mean, that's one of the that's what I was saying earlier, is that they're very receptive, right? The government. And there's so many different levels of government. The reason probably why you don't get the big giant e-commerce guys coming is because they have their direct channels to counterparts in government, right? But those are super, like Dubai Chamber is incredible at this. They have a committee for almost every industry. Dubai Customs is also super amazing at this. They have the Dubai Customs Consultative Council. So they have representatives from all the major trade associations, from electronics to jewelry to textiles to automotive parts, and they have a quarterly meeting, and they're very active, right? So I know that when they get feedback from the industry, they are very active. They go and they liaise with the right government departments, and they do drive policy change and strategy change for the government. So I think we're very lucky here, and I think that this synergy that's come out from this between the industry interest groups and communities, and obviously the government here is open for business, right? This is they see it as as a matter of policy to support.
Non-oil income is what Dubai's major income is.
But it's not just Dubai. We talked a lot about Dubai, right? We're getting a lot of support from RAC. Commerce as well, right? The Chamber of Commerce in Ras Al Khaimah, and Ras Al Khaimah sees themselves as a startup emirate within a startup country, right? And very much trying to attract businesses and I saw also if people are listening to or going to listen to this from outside of the UAE, is that the UAE is bigger than just Dubai and Abu Dhabi, and there's some great stuff happening in Fujairah, in Rak, in Sharjah, in some of the other emirates around, right? And you get some of the same benefits of being in Dubai as you do there, right?
It applies to the region as well.
Exactly.
I think the whole region is going through this change.
And I think this is super important, right? Because the thing is, one of the challenges we have in Dubai and Abu Dhabi now is the cost of living, cost of doing business has gone up so much. So I think that it really opens up the market to a lot more people at a much lower risk threshold.
Exactly.
Right? Because you can, it's far more affordable. You can afford to take a risk if your cost of licensing and things are lower.
If it's lower. So let me ask you one thing. Now, going back to a little bit to what you said before, that, okay, there are challenges that you're going to face. There are some things that, this is a tough pill to swallow. Just to close, I would like to see, what would be your advice to someone? Imagine someone in their 20s come and say, you know what, I want to start my business. I want to start from the beginning. What is an advice that you would give that person to, I don't know, not to guarantee success, but at least to make failure more acceptable?
All right. Someone in the 20s, right?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, I'm going to try to keep it short. There's so many things that you got to know, but I think the most...
I think we are over the time already.
2 sentences. So number one, I would say Murphy is not a very nice person, if you know Murphy's Law.
Yeah.
He wrote a really awful law, Murphy's Law. Everything that can go wrong will go wrong. And it sucks, but live with it. So if you're going into a business, I mean, if you plan things are going to work out in 6 months, it's going to take a year or 2 years, right? If you think it's going to cost you $500,000, it's going to cost you $1 million. So I would say, number one, expect the unexpected. And number two, I would say, be smart. Don't become a martyr. You don't want to put everything into one basket. I mean, there's financial sentiments that, go for it. You're young, take risks, but make sure you're not shooting yourself in the foot. You're not homeless. You're not, able to feed yourself. Be smart about it. Know your finances, and absolutely start early. Do it, fail, and get comfortable failing, for sure.
Yeah, I've got two really, really short ones. One is always stay curious, right? Be curious about people, be curious about your ideas, be curious, go and talk to people and do all of these things. So I think maintaining that curiosity, young people have that curiosity, and keeping and nurturing it and having that. And the other thing, and I know this counter to what you've been saying about start early, is try and get some corporate experience. I think having gone through it myself, and also looking at some of the founders that I'm surrounded by, the ones that have at least a little bit of corporate experience, I think they add something to the entrepreneurial skill sets that you don't get if you come straight out of a college or drop out and come and run a business. It gives you this sense of structure. It gives you this sense of how money is made, right? And where money is spent. And I think working in a corporate environment can give you that really, really quickly. You don't need to go and spend years and years, but spend some time working in a corporate environment. It helps you to network. It helps you to build relationships, which you will probably be multiple times tougher doing it just straight out of college.
Okay.
Yeah, so I would really like to thank you for coming up with this brilliant closure question. Why is because this is kind of my life motto. I live with this motto of aspire to inspire before you expire. So this is what a 40-year-old or a 30-year-old do. So message to a 20-year-old would be, rather than looking back and regretting at the age of 40, this is such old Chinese proverb. This goes like this.
Yeah.
The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The next best time is today.
Yes. All right. That's
Brilliant.
great. Very, very inspiring. And I would like to add only one that we kind of talked a little bit about this, but I think because I was seeing something interesting before about building the team. Like I'm building the team at the moment now for the startup, and I started like doing a lot of research in terms of what is the best way to build the actual team. And I found an analogy that is interesting. We were talking about the perception that the more that I increase the team, the more I'm going to get things done. Like if I have one engineer, I'm going to get this result. If I have two, I'm going to get twice,
Double,
three. And I found this analogy. I can't remember who says this, but they talk about people in terms of barrels and ammunition. You can shoot from the barrels that you have. So most people are ammunition, but barrels are those who can get things done, who can get projects from beginning to end. So the time spent into building the right team, I think it's one of the key elements that is going to get you through the finish line.
True.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
All right. Okay. Thank you so much, guys, for being
Thank you
here.
very
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for the
Thanks for
conversation.
having us,
It's been very interesting. I hope our viewers think the same.
Yep.
And okay, we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.